Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Educator Experience podcast. My name is Sally Carter. I've been teaching now for almost a decade, but my fabulous guest, Reetika Khanna, today has been involved in education for about 27 years now. So she has seen some things, y'all, and she has a few stories along her journey. But something she's always been curious about, and something many of us rarely pause to consider, is the presence of the teacher. Now, in philosophy, Heidegger calls it Dasein, meaning being there. But in the classroom, it raises a deeper question: who is teaching? Ritika's work explores that very who, the person behind the lesson plan, and how our lived experiences, identities, and stories shape the way we show up for our students. This curiosity started long before she stood at the front of a classroom. And as a student, she often wondered about her teachers. Who are they? What has shaped how they teach? Over time, those same questions turned inward, leading her to reflect on her own teaching presence and how her experiences continue to shape her practice today. This is truly a thoughtful, deeply human conversation about what it really means to be there and who we are as educators. I am beyond privileged and blessed to share this wonderful conversation and space to learn about Ritika's journey and share it and sharing it with you folks. I hope you enjoy. Let's get to it. Ritika, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your time with us. Are you open to sharing a little bit about your journey into teaching and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely, Sally. Thank you for having me. And thank you for giving educators this platform to be seen and heard. I was so excited to be here. And absolutely, I'm excited to share my journey, which has been an unusual one, actually. The last thing I ever wanted to be was a teacher, believe it or not. After teaching 27 years, I know the exact moment I was invited, in fact. So it was an invitation from the principal of my daughter's school to come and start teaching. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to be a teacher. I never wanted to be one. And I think one of the reasons that I didn't want to be a teacher was all the women in my family were teachers. So all I'd seen them do was teach and, go through the systems and go through whatever frustrations that they went through while teaching and in their own journeys. And the other reason was that my own educational experience as a child was not very pleasant. Was the pedagogies that I grew up with were very disciplined, distant, paternalistic,
Mm.
and I wasn't sure I want to do the same, and I wasn't sure I want to be the same. Rather, let's just put it that way. I didn't come to teaching; teaching came to me. I was invited, and I still think of it as an invitation.
What a beautiful way to phrase it. I love this.
I didn't study to be a teacher, and then I was teaching. So there was this sort of newness about a, a profession or work that I wasn't prepared for, but then I took the plunge, literally and figuratively. But also that I was suddenly in a classroom full of middle schoolers, and I had no idea what to do. All I knew was my subject. I knew how to teach English, and I was teaching English to them. But how do you deal with 25 very young, very enthusiastic students in the classroom? I had no idea. So it began from there. And then I think within a year or two, I realized I would have to study this. I can teach, probably I can teach English, but in order for me to understand education and to be a better teacher or to engage more deeply with it. So I went on to do my BA. I remember I used to work in the day and I used to take evening classes to do my BA. So it was extremely challenging. I would be so tired, but then I was like, if I have to do something well, I'd better be studying it. I better be, knowing more about it. So that's where it began. And then I went on to teach high school students English. And then that journey was, I think, about 15 to 17 years with a little bit of a break because I had a personal tragedy. My husband had passed. And I think by the end of 15 or 17 years, within that time, I also went on to do my master's in English, which was, again, something that I was teaching. I'm like, I should know more. I thought at the time that I was beginning to be saturated. And I took a sabbatical for about 2 years to come to Canada to UBC to do my second master's in education. But at the time, I didn't know that it wasn't actually a saturation, it was a loss of connection to me and my practice, to what I was doing, who I was as a teacher. While doing my grad studies, I think I sort of understood that what I was really doing was really reflecting on my practice and studying it deeply. And something in the way that I was teaching was calling for my attention. Um, and I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what that something was, and I knew I had to find it. If I ever had to continue teaching, unless I found that, it wasn't going to make sense for me. And for me, when things don't connect and they don't connect to me and they don't connect to who I am and who I'm becoming, it's just then it's labor. For me, it's labor.
Mhm.
So that was a bit of my journey. And then after I finished my grad studies, I decided to stay on in Canada and teach post secondary. And currently, I teach at two wonderful places, Alexander College, sorry, and Alexander School of Management, and they're both wonderful places to work at.
That's quite a journey. I don't know if I'm asking too much here, but what was it that allowed you to feel reconnected or connect in a different form with teaching during your studies?
I'm glad you asked that. It was while I was studying and I was taking these courses and I was reading literature, I was reading philosophers, I was reading
Mhm.
curriculum theorists, I was reading specialists in pedagogy, and I was having these beautiful, deep, meaningful conversations with grad students, my advisors, my teachers. I was writing papers. I think the penny dropped then, you know, and mostly with writing my thesis, which is mostly about who am I as a teacher. That was my research question for my master's thesis. And I can't even begin to tell you how profound and how rich and how meaningful that study is. And I would always say to teachers, take that sabbatical and go and study more, to find more meaning and more connection to yourself and to your work. It's just so pivot. It was so pivotal to me, I think. And it brought about a shift, a very, very beautiful shift in the way that I looked at my practice and I looked at education and the way that I wanted to take it on further.
So what did that look like when you reintegrated into teaching then?
I was definitely more aware. I was definitely more attuned to the way that I wanted teaching to speak to me and the way that I wanted myself to speak to my own practice. I think it was so interlocked, these two things. And before that, they were two separate things. And the way they came together and synthesized, I think for me, that brought about so much change in the way that I am as an educator today.
How do you think you show up now then? Can you tell us a little bit about who you are now in your classroom, what that means to you and what that looks like?
So Sally, I think I'm going to begin with a little bit of, some of the concepts that I continue to use in my practice that I found in my graduate study, actually. But a disclaimer first, just because I use them doesn't mean I'm an expert at them. It's just the way that I understood them and interpreted them, and I continue to use them. So one of those philosophical concepts was of Dasein. It's a concept originally by Martin Heidegger, who was a philosopher and thinker in the 20th century. And he talks about being. Dasein is being, who you are, presence, yourself. Um, and to me, because I was seeking a deeper connection, I, I just went right in and I said, who is this self? Who am I when I'm teaching? Um, and then I think what Heidegger also says, that so much of yourself is in your blind spots. You don't know. You don't get to see who you are really. So Dasein appears in the moments. It's there, but you don't really see it. It's the moments that make it manifest in a certain way. And I think when I reintegrated back into teaching, That's what I became aware of, the moments of teaching. So the moments when, and you know, when you have international students in Canada, the moments of their struggle, the moments of, you know, how they feel in a place which is yet not their own, but they are here to study, and the struggle and the conflicts that they go through. And at the time, I was teaching students who were just newly into Canada, like literally a month or two into Canada, and they were coming into classrooms. So for me, that became very crucial to be mindful and to be aware of those moments of who I was, what I was saying, what I was bringing into the classroom, what kind of conversations. So you can imagine students struggling to find work,
Mhm.
students, struggling to find accommodation, struggling to find belonging to a place that will now be theirs at least for the next couple of years and hopefully more. I remember, so this is a story about this very young student who started work as a construction worker. Um, and he would probably, so I was teaching the evening class, so he would probably work all day and he would show up for my evening class. You know, he would have dirt under his fingernails. He would be dusty, grimy, sweaty. Some of his other classmates wouldn't want to sit next to him. And for me, it became an important question of who am I in this moment with this student? With what am I bringing to him as he's showing up for the class and for whatever he's trying to do. And I think so when I say Dasein is in the moments, this is what it is. It's how we are in those moments as educators for students that are in our classes. So it's about teacher presence as well, right? Gert Biesta, who's an educator, he goes, we show up in plurality and difference. A teacher presence shows up in that. And that to me, in the Canadian context, is so, so obvious because everybody coming into our classrooms, most of the international students are from elsewhere. They are different. They are coming from systems and beliefs and rituals and traditions that are different from the person who's teaching them, for example.
Mhm.
And so, how do we show up for them in that? What shows up for me in those moments of difference and plurality? I think um, in my reintegration, I became very conscious of all that. That helps answer that.
Wow. Oh, I have I have so many questions. Tell me more. Tell me more. Do you have any other it's such a abstract but concrete concept or framework. Can you dive into the framework and the concept a little bit more to help us really understand what you mean about teacher presence and our own being in the classroom?
Heidegger, I think, says that this being that we are ourselves, it should include inquiry into the possibilities that we can be. What are our latent possibilities, right? So here I am, I'm a teacher, I'm going in to teach a class, let's say on writing or on fiction. And oh yeah, I have to do these couple of things today and I've got to complete this, or I have an assignment or whatever it is, right? So that's the what of what we're going to teach that day. My advisor, Dr. Ann Phelan, used to say, think of these as conversations, not as what you're going to teach, but what are the conversations that you're going to bring to class?
Mm.
Okay. And then make it a process where you start with what do students know versus what you need to tell them. So for me, teacher presence is always about beginning from what students know or don't know.
So starting from understanding the level of knowledge that already exists and then building and collaborating with it.
But doing through a conversation, not so much as this is what it is, this is what I want you to do or not do, this is what it looks like. I think our students, especially when they come away from their families, or some of them may have their families here, they're looking for connections, they're looking for conversations. They're not looking for a teacher to stand and tell them what to do, I think. In all these years, I have found conversations really work where it comes to some very, very sensitive issues, especially things that, that your students have little or no knowledge of. For me, that has been a game changer. Conversations have been game changers for me. And I think today, some of the students who are still, in touch with me and off and on, it's because of the conversation. It's not because of what I taught, or it's not about whether they passed or failed or whatever. It's about what I brought to the classrooms in those moments.
The words respect, collaboration, empathy come up for me when you're speaking about the essence of being in that moment. Does that sound fair?
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. Respect is a very big thing for me. No matter where a student has come from, no matter what their ideology or belief systems or education systems or whatever they think. And I think I need to respect where they're coming from, because I cannot just say, you don't know, and this is what you need to know. I think it's disrespectful to go at it in that very, I find it aggressive. And I also find it very insensitive, because uh, I don't think we should be treating students like they don't know, and I'm the person wanting to tell them everything. So, so I think the question of who I am and the question of how I am, I think these are just very legit questions. Um, and you can get it right 100%. You can't. Dasein is something that is limitless in its possibilities, but it's also something that is challenging, and it needs others. Dasein always needs others for it to show up. And in that moment, when you're confronting the other, it's very challenging to know what your Dasein is and to know how to navigate it, or even if you want to.
Right. Even if one wants to.
We get so caught up with doing it right, which I don't think is
Mm.
the purpose here. The, the point is to really be conscious and be aware of uh, who you are in that.
Ritika, it's making me want to share something that happened recently to me where I messed up as an educator. I don't know if the word messed up, but um, I feel like my design was not in alignment with who I wanted to be in that moment. So my story starts in that I was teaching in a big lecture theater at Thompson Rivers University. So the connection with my students is limited. I attempt to create connection, but it is what it is in that type of classroom design. So fine class, no problems, and then went 45 minutes to teach in an indigenous community in a small room of women leaders, and to just teach an interactive workshop together. And I brought my old mindset of being in that lecture theater and being all eyes on me into this space that was so collaborative and connective. And I messed up in that because we were delayed due to everyone enjoying lunch and connecting. We were delayed. I skipped the steps of the rapport building, icebreakers and stuff at the fun stuff, getting to know everyone, and also the course values and the values of that day and how we would collectively run that course. So that what happened was in my head, I'm rushing to get everything done. And I cut a lady off because she was sharing, repeatedly, she shared a few longer experiences. And I just didn't think we could get everyone's voices in. And I thought that that's what was wanted. And I cut her off a little bit. And I was reminded that time is a Western concept and that we will get there when we get there. And it just really struck a chord with me, as in I'm in this incredible group of collaborative women trying to bring in my more rigid mindset from where I was, and without truly connecting and letting everything go and just being with them in their moment. I'm the outsider. And I'm still, it was a week ago and I still think about it. And I'm so excited that I get a chance to keep going back so that I can openly admit as soon as I get back there, I messed up last time. I think I would love the opportunity to reintegrate ourselves, get to know each other in a way that is meaningful for you. And for me to let all my ideas of rushing through things or making sure that they know this or that and letting them lead how they want the workshop to go. I was so upset with myself because you always want to be the best, whatever it is. But my desire to be the best was coming from an egotistical standpoint and not a genuine connective. Um, yeah, so when I was really thinking about this concept, I was just like, that's just so it. I brought in my one personality into a space that I really needed to let go and be in that moment. Yeah.
You remind me of, the time that I said I already related to you about being in that classroom with middle schoolers. It was pretty much the same. I was so intent on doing what it takes, teaching, giving an assignment,
Do,
taking
do,
it
do, do,
back,
do, right?
grading,
Yes,
listen,
yes.
and not engaging with those beautiful, enthusiastic, spirited young people
Yes.
in the classroom. And I think when I spoke to you about my disconnect, it was that because it was
Mhm.
my failure to engage and be so uh, particular about doing what I had to do, just the doing part, but not the being part. So I think that's such a lovely story, Sally, because
I still think about it. It's just eating me up, but it's also me wanting to be it's I think the concept also comes from continual growth and development and reflection. In order to be better and to grow, we need to recognize how our behaviors affect others and how we interact with others.
I think Heidegger says, well, because he's a phenomenologist and he studies lived experiences in the moments, Dasein is there, but the moment is lost. And I think about that so much in my practice. Those moments where they could have been deep engagement, but I there was something in me that wouldn't allow me to go into those moments, whatever that might have been. So for me, my practice and my pedagogy was such a place of resistance. It was a place of tension. It was a place of conflict. It was a messy place, in the beginning until I studied it, until I saw and I explored, what was happening. And it's just so interesting because, I mean, I wouldn't have been the person I am today if I hadn't done that, of course, because observation, reflection, and, analyzing and sort of synthesizing is so much a part of an educator's journey that I think without that struggle, I don't think, like as you rightly said, we wouldn't grow and develop as educators. And so many times my ego wouldn't allow me to be vulnerable. It wouldn't
Mhm.
allow that vulnerability. I think I've had a very hard time accepting that I probably missed the moments or I failed or I didn't do it correctly because, well, it wasn't even about doing it correctly in the first place. I mean, I don't believe there is such a thing like a correct thing or a night, but what is your that sign in that moment is more my question for now. And that sign is something you can choose. It is something to be or not to be, really. And it's so powerful. I think it just resonated with me so beautifully at the time. I, I can't unlearn it, and I don't want to. Um, and especially now, Sally, in this time of with the whole world, and especially the field of education is being so overwhelmed with technology and AI in such a way. I think being human is such a precious thing.
Mm.
It is. I think we need to hold on to it because it's precious, it's valuable, it's the connective piece, it's the thing that brings greater meaning to whatever you're doing. And I think now is a very good time to really, really have those conversations about, teacher presence.
I love this. Thank you. May I ask what other amazing things you have going on in your life?
So This is actually very relevant and pertinent, especially with what's going on with the Canadian education system, with post-secondary these days, with limited student permits, not a whole lot of students coming into the country to study. And it seems as if the industry is going through a bit of a crisis. For me, in many ways, the students and educators are somehow in the same situation. Students struggling to find employment, and educators under the threat of losing their jobs. I also think that a crisis is a time for people to come together as communities and engage with each other more deeply and serve each other better. I think I want to use the word serve because this is really the time to serve. I do have a lot of faith in education, but if I were to leave and do something else, I'm not sure I'm going to come back, because stability also means a lot, and we've never seen such an unstable time as now. And I'm just very grateful to be working at the two places that I work and still to have a little bit of choice. But it's hard because I see it in people's eyes. I hear the talks in faculty lounges about how people are feeling so uncertain, and it's just keeping a lot of people awake at night, I think.
I've had a lot of conversations with colleagues about this and recently laid off friends, and it is a challenging time for sure. And I appreciate the various communities that are coming together to really support one another. And hopefully, we can all ride this out together. But there will be a loss. There will be a loss of beautiful minds, beautiful connections. Um, but hopefully, in the future, things can realign. And yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, because I think, and if you look at people who might be near retirement, or people who might be mid-career, or people who are just entering into the field, or relatively new, what does it mean for them? Some people might never come back. Some people might not have that faith back in this industry. Some people might be like, "Oh my God, I just started teaching 2 years ago. What's going on?" I mean, I've spent like 6, 7 years of my life studying for a PhD, and suddenly I'm without a job. So I
Yeah.
think I think I think those are just very troubling things at the moment. The crisis is real, and it's coming to our door. We don't, it's almost here. So, um, and what about students? I mean, think about it. When a student gets to know there's professors being laid off, what kind of faith will they have in their degree? For example, my own professor can't find a job. So it's kind of interesting to to think of all that from different perspectives and see how this industry is going to shape, and who knows how it's going to refigure, right?
If I could circle back to you mentioned AI. Well, here's a funny little story. While I was preparing for our conversation, I was entering it into Chat GPT. And because I do a lot of work with AI with my business, it understands my businesses. It wrote back to me that I am currently creating or embodying my own design through this podcast. And it even reminded me that I cried the other day after a podcast because of the connection I created for myself within these conversations. And it was just so funny. I was
Oh
like, did I
my
tell it
God.
that? But I wrote a blog right after and it had made that connection. And this artificial intelligence reminded me that I am in a state of being present and contributing to my field in a way that feels in alignment for me at this point. And this thing that I've longed for in educator connections, because I didn't have that as a contract worker. I was in and out for workshops here and there when I first started 8 years ago. I worked for numerous places and I had other stuff to do, or I was online. So I didn't make those faculty connections. I didn't make those friends. I didn't have peers to talk to about things like this or classroom management or anything like that. It was just so interesting for it to put back to me that this is me creating my best space for my growth and development and for me to be myself and experience what I'm seeking. So it was so good. It was so cute.
Amazing.
Thanks,
That is
ChatGPT.
Oh my goodness,
Thanks
that
for
is
reminding me of
amazing.
cry the other day. It was so weird.
Well, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I wouldn't think that AI would do that, but I think it really helped you find meaning.
Yeah,
And
it's just like, wow, okay. All right. Oh, I just have tingles from this conversation. Thank you so much. Um,
thank you, Sally.
Ritika, as we start to wind down our conversation, if I may invite you to share one piece of advice for new educators or anyone considering this field, what might that be for you?
So I actually have one thing from myself and two things from people who have influenced me and from my readings. So Paulo Freire, the Brazilian thinker and educator and philosopher, says education makes sense because men and women learn that through learning they can make and remake themselves. Because men and women are able to take responsibility for themselves as beings capable of knowing that they know, and of knowing that they don't. And I found that very, very powerful. That this is, there are things that we can do with ourselves, with our Dasein. We can make and unmake and remake. And there are things we'll know and there are things we won't know. And we should be okay with that. We should be accepting of that and not be trying to fix anything and not be trying to do too much. I'm sorry, Sally.
No, it's okay. So embarrassing. Keep going. This is just so beautiful. Everything that you're saying is so beautiful.
Thank you. And then Hannah Arendt, another one of my favorite philosophers, says education is the point at which we decide whether we love the world enough to take responsibility for it. And I think that's powerful too. Um, and I think I just want to say, as the world gets hard, it's time to be soft. It's time to be soft in our classrooms, with ourselves, with others. There's no greater time to be soft than now, as everything around us becomes challenging and hard.
That's beautiful. Ritika, thank you. So much love for you, your time, your energy to share your story and your journey and your experience. It's just so impactful to connect on that level. And can you imagine the other people that it may impact too? As a beautiful reminder to be soft and to be vulnerable in these hard times. And then we are continuously just reinventing ourselves and we have the ability to. Yeah.
Right. And Brown says that being vulnerable is an act of courage. And I do believe that. Because for the longest time I wasn't, and I know how hard it was. I was hard with myself too.
Mm.
And then I was hard with others. So there's something in there. And then when I said to you something was calling my attention, this was calling my attention. The softness was calling my attention. The beingness was calling my attention.
Oh
It's a
my
lovely
God.
conversation, Sally.
Oh, I look forward to reading your papers and please,
Yep, I will send
yes,
it to you.
share,
Um,
continue to share all your knowledge with us. And
and
yeah.
my paper is actually very profound because I talk about being a being in grief in that. And that's a whole different conversation, though, because I had a lot of grief coming my way. Personally, I think in a span of 10 years, I'd lost 4 family members. And this was all while I was teaching. And then, so how grief impacted me in the classroom. My exploration of my Dasein is also as a being in grief. So, yeah, I'll send it your way.
Thank you so much. I want to drive to Surrey and give you the biggest hug.
What's
I
your
feel like
lads?
I'm just meeting the most beautiful people through these conversations, and it's genuinely just filling my heart with gratitude for hosting a space for people to share a piece of themselves and for us to all learn from one another. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you for seeing us and hearing us.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, you're so
really.
beautiful. Thank Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Educator Experience. We hope you're walking away feeling connected, inspired, and just a little bit more supported on your journey. Ready to go a little bit deeper? Join the Educator Experiences community and check out our courses and workshops specifically designed to support new educators as they navigate the ups, downs, and everything in between. You'll find it all at educatorexperiences.com. If today's conversation resonated with you, share it with a fellow educator and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Together, we're building a vibrant community rooted in support and connection. See y'all next Monday.